to Panic the Podcast, guys. It's Tia I'm Katie.
I'm Tia.
I'm
You're
Katie.
Katie. Yes, and we are here.
I am Ron Burgundy.
Damn it, who typed a question mark on the teleprompter? I told you guys, Katie will say anything that you type on her screen. That's why I do it to her all the time.
It's true.
No, but seriously, so this is our first alternate therapy episode.
And I am so excited about it. This is the one that when we first started brainstorming ideas for our show, we were both pumped about doing this alternative therapy concept with you guys. So I know we touched on it in the first episode, but basically, we're going to try some weird shit that has some either research, fact, or just hearsay. We'll try hearsay. We'll check out your snake oil and see if it works.
I'm all about snake oil. It makes my skin glow.
We're going to try things, and we're going to see if we felt any benefit to our mental health, our depression, our anxiety, whatever. So this is our first one.
This is our first one, and we decided to do a sensory deprivation tank.
Yes.
Yes, and I really was like, Katie's was the one who wanted to go really big with the first one. She's like, I want to do a sensory deprivation tank. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And she's like, think Stranger Things. And I was like, got it. We're walking into mines. Fantastic. Sign me up.
And that was definitely, I think, both of our expectations when we walked into Sacred Floats and Gems, which is the business that we used. They're in Tampa, Florida.
Seminole Heights, to be exact.
Seminole Heights. We went to a hip joint. You can,
which is what all the cool kids are calling it now.
Right. That's what all of the youngins say, right? So our expectations were definitely to go into somebody else's mind or enter another dimension.
My really was Eva Mendes, because then I could be married to Ryan Gosling.
I like that. I'm going to channel that if I do a float again, for sure, to
definitely
see. So we'll tell you whether we got into anybody else's mind, and we'll talk about potential other dimensions that were accessed during our experience. But right now,
we can't afford anyone to do sound effects, so I have to do them all for the show.
It's true. We're a new podcast. Maybe if we had more listener support. Anyway, so we will tell you about our experience. But first, let's talk about why I wanted to do float tanks so bad.
Please, Katie, give us a brief history of a float tank.
Wow, what an amazing transition, Tia. I appreciate that. That's co-hosting, guys.
I appreciate you.
And I appreciate you appreciating me.
Oh, so much appreciation.
So, the float tank, right? It was invented by Dr. John C. Lilly. Do you know who that is?
I do not know who that is.
So he's super famous for being a well-known psychonaut, which means that he really liked to experiment with psychedelics, LSD, shrooms. I'm sure he probably did DMT at some point, but he was really into exploring the depths of the mind, basically, through using these things.
It's like in the TV show Fringe, which is my first favorite float tank reference.
Exactly. So Dr. John C. Lilly he does this research and finds out that sensory deprivation doesn't just have to be used as a form of torture anymore, and that it can...
That's a plus.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. John C. Lilly, for turning a downer into an upper. So Dr. John C. Lilly creates the float tank. And what it is about 10 inches of water in a coffin-like enclosure, really, that's filled with 2,000 pounds of Epsom salt, so you float. And the water is heated to body temperature. So you get into the tank, and you float yourself in the water, and then you shut the door, and it's complete darkness. Light can't get in, sound can't really get in. You start to, hopefully, disconnect a little bit from your body, and you're left with just your conscience there, right? That's the hope when you go into it. So he finds that it has magnificent benefits for pain relief. A lot of people with fibromyalgia are super into it. And also there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that people have talked about that they have experienced a decrease in anxiety and lessening symptoms of depression. So, started by the dude who loved shrooms, and then there's a guy now who's super cool, and he actually started a whole institute that studies floating and whether or not it has a place in traditional therapies for anxiety and depression. So this guy's name is Dr. Justin Feinstein.
Oh, Dennis Feinstein's brother.
Yes, exactly.
So hopefully he never uses any of his perfumes or colognes inside of the tank research. I don't
Well,
think I could
you're
do
not allowed to wear perfumes and colognes in the
true.
tank. No. So Dr. Justin Feinstein has a whole institute for floating. They do a lot of different research. They've been monitoring brain activity during floats, and even though the research is super new, they have actually seen evidence that floating helps lower anxiety on par with some prescription anxiety medication. The one that they specifically mention is lorazepam, which I found interesting because that's a very, very often prescribed anxiety medication, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Xanax and lorazepam or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So lorazepam actually works by shutting off your amygdala, which if you have anxiety, which you do, obviously you know the racing thoughts. So the amygdala doesn't just shut off the same way without medication. You can't reach that through relaxation alone, typically.
Mm-hmm.
However, some brain scans and preliminary research are showing that floating actually has shut off the amygdala in some patients in the same way that lorazepam works to shut it off.
Wow.
Yeah, it's also supposed to be really good for focus and creative energy. They did a study on jazz students where after they floated,
Jazz hands.
yeah, they had better jazz hands after floating. They did it like 1 hour a week for 4 weeks and then performed better in blind tests between students who hadn't done the floats or were given, an alternate therapy from there.
Well, I hope that they graded on a curve that semester because that's totally not fair for the people that didn't get the treatment. Be like, oh, I get shitty grades because y'all get to have this advanced
God, you're right.
So hopefully they still all gave them an A.
Hopefully. So that's a little bit about just why. Once I heard about it and I started researching and I read all of that, I, as somebody who is a creative, as somebody who does have anxiety, I was like, I have to fucking try this and see if it can help me with any of those things.
Yeah. And I like to try everything once. That's kind of my philosophy in life. For the most part, there's 99% of the things I will try once in life. But
try 99 things, but anal ain't one.
So we're going to take you on our journey to Sacred Floats and Gems in Tampa. We did an interview with a beautiful girl named Meme, and she's the manager over there, and she gave us a little bit of a history and a little kind of some information on the whole process of it.
Yeah, so check out our interview with Meme, and when we get back, we will tell you about our thoughts and if we got into anybody's mind.
And I'll let you know how Ryan Gosling's lip tastes.
So is this like your store?
No, I run it.
What got you into this?
So Jared, which is the owner, he started this just basically, he has a float center in Thailand. So he started it because he wanted to bring over the wellness factor of flotation therapy to Tampa because we were the first ones here. So there was nothing like this here yet. So he wanted to bring that over. And so we're very close friends. So he was like, hey dude, I know that you have a lot of back pain. I know you suffer from pre-existing injuries. You should definitely try this out. And I was like, okay, well, hey, anything that's going to help the pain, I'll definitely try out. And so then that's how I got started. And basically, once I started floating, I was like, okay, hooked.
Really?
Yeah, it's
for you, it's physical. Do you have any, are you crazy at all? Does it help that? Do you have anxiety or depression or anything like that it helps you with as well? Or is it I read that when you're suffering from chronic pain, not only does it ease the pain, but it's also supposed to be really good for the depression and like
Yeah,
exhaustion
mentally.
that comes mentally from it. Did you
Yeah.
find that it helped you with that?
Definitely does. I'm an artist, so I also have a lot of like,
High five.
yeah.
Artist club.
So yeah, so being that way, you know, and mentally, I like always constantly just so many ideas and so many like unfinished projects or starting projects and just all this going on, you know. So when I'm in there, I'm able to like focus down, kind of like, you know, narrow down a couple things, or just like a flush of like all new creative juices start to happen.
I read that it's really good for. I was waiting to get like, all right, what's the idea that was another thing. I'm like, first time, I better have some creative genius. How long have you been doing it for? Like floating and
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 years now.
now. What about the crystals? Is that your thing too? Like you're into crystals and stuff?
Yeah, well, naturally, I kind of have to be if I'm working here, right?
Right. Does anybody like? Is there anything where you bring like the crystals into the float tank?
Yeah, so we have our own personal pieces that we'll put on top of the float tank to kind of like, you know, hang out with. But we do encourage people if they want to bring something with them, as long as it's not inside the tank because it could puncture, you know, the liner and things like that. They're more than welcome to put the crystals with them. You know, there's crystal grids that we've set up before for them on top of the
Really?
tank. Yeah. So we can, you know, you could definitely intermix them. They kind of go hand in hand in the sense of like, you know, your spirituality and things like that. So yeah, the crystal side of it is neat because you get a lot of like-minded people that don't realize like, oh, flotation therapy and also this realm are both very like similar.
It's all in the same universe. I mean,
healing,
I guess. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. This is the question that all of us really want to know. Has anybody ever just freaked the fuck out? Like just like you had to do like, oh shit, what's going on back there?
Like,
and run.
hello?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, they might be naked. I can't walk in. I told them I wouldn't walk in. They'd have privacy. What do I do?
No, I won't say that I haven't walked in on somebody before. That's been quite funny, because they'll actually call me back there, you know, they'll be like, hey, I have a question, fully naked. I'm like, all right, great. Hello. But you know, we're so cool with that it's no big deal, but it's just very startling, you know. So that's happened before, but no one's actually freaked out, like fully gone crazy. No. We've had some people that of course are like, hey, you know what, maybe it's not for me or something, you know. It's very rare, but it has happened. And, you know, for those individuals, everybody's different, and floating's not for everybody either, you know, but for the most part, if you give yourself some time in there, you will realize, like, it's okay. Like, you can actually, you know, vibe with it. You just need to give yourself that time, not, you know, kind of quit, like, after 5 minutes.
Right.
You know, but a lot of people have that, like, hesitant, like, you know, the darkness and things like that right at first, so that's why we give those tips, like, you know, I was giving you, like, leave the door open. Or
that was the best. It, like, it's like when the water's too cold and you have to, like, kind of like, all right, I'm just gonna go, like, to my knees. Yeah. Now, like, all the way in.
Yeah.
All right, so I read that it actually, like, sensory deprivation was like a torture technique, basically. That Dr. Lily was like, let's see if we can make something good out of this, right?
Yeah.
So the longer you stay in them, I guess, the more possibility there is that you could actually experience some of the effects that it was used for torture, right? So my question in saying that is, a lot of people, when I was researching, especially like Joe Rogan, he's like, I do it 2 hours every day. And I'm like, holy shit, like, what's the line between I meditate for a while versus like, and now I'm like torturing myself on accident? Like, what's the longest you've been able to do it for that you think is like a safe, well, or comfortable, or just what's the longest you've ever done?
I've slept in there.
Overnight?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people that actually sleep overnight. That specifically request overnights if they have an interview or like a job interview, something big the next day, an exam. We have someone that took the MCATs and we're like, I need to like come in and sleep in this thing, you know. So we've had people sleep in there before. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi.
Let us know if you have any questions, okay?
Will do.
Or me, not them. But
Not us.
I like us.
We can make
you guys are
some
working
answers
here
for
now.
you.
I mean, we could try. try to answer things, but I don't know if it'll be too
They're learning a lot.
Yeah.
So I've slept in there. So that's been a period of maybe like 5 to 6 hours. Because sometimes you have to get out and use the restroom and things like that. But I would say like safely, everyone's different, but I don't think you should deprive yourself of fully everything reality-wise for too long, because then it's hard to kind of get back into it and you kind of lose grip of what's going on. I guess like the torturing side of it is more against your will.
Yeah.
This is more you're willing to, and I feel that you get into a deep state where you feel good, and as long as you're able to get out of it and kind of like get back into reality, you're okay. So I would say if you need a number, I would say you can float up to like 4 hours and be fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, and you can sleep overnight. I mean, you could probably even do 5. Everybody's different, but
okay.
yeah, as long as you're not like there for days,
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, maybe on another alternative therapy episode.
You definitely have to use the bathroom at some point. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Or we'll just pay you that $1,000 on the waiver,
yeah,
right?
you're like,
No.
big on the chest.
All right. So then the last thing would just be if there was anything that you wanted to say about floating to anybody who might listen. Does include at least 30 people, including our parents.
I would say just, you know what? Go into it with no expectations and just think about it as you're doing something really great for yourself, something that's, for the first time probably going to be a very healthy way to decompress and not have constant stimulant of like stress.
Yeah, exactly. It
So just
seems better
give
than
yourself-
like drinking until I pass out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. So give yourself the opportunity to try it and understand it, and just do yourself a favor and try floating for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was such an awesome pleasure to meet you and do this, and I will definitely see you again. So
Okay, awesome. Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting you. All right, so we are back in the studio post float. You just listened to our interview with the illustrious Memi. Check out our YouTube page. You can see some of the video of the interview with Memi as well as the cool place. But for now, let's talk about what we thought about it. So Tia, I want to know what your expectations were walking into it and what your reality was.
So obviously, like I had said before, expectations, mind walking. Like I really did. Like I thought maybe that might be part of it. I knew that it was the big component of mind walking was probably the LSD that was also involved in most of these scenarios.
We accidentally left that at home. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. We didn't get the full, experience. But expectations, yeah, the mind walking obviously did not happen. Reality was kind of what I thought was really going to happen besides the mind walking. Like, you get into a tank, you float, and it was literally my mind just floating in a tank of water where it's racing, and, like, I'm always thinking things, but then I just started thinking about, like, weird shit, too. Like, oh, look, my body is a C this way. Oh, my body is a C the other way. Like, and I was, like, floating back and forth on the thing. But then I kept wondering about how much time was really going on as well. But that time actually did go pretty fast because we were in that tank for a whole hour, but it was weird. Like, time had a different feeling when I was actually in the tank, if that makes any sense.
No, it does, because time went by really fast for me when I was in there too. And I had trouble turning off. So I really tried to focus and turn my brain off. My expectation going in there, did I think it would be cool / really, really terrifying to end up in another dimension a la Stranger Things? Yeah. Did I have to keep pushing the door open every now and then to get some light in to reground me, because then I got scared that I was going to enter another dimension? Yes, but that's my anxious thought train. So what I was really looking forward to, or what I was hoping to get from the float taking experience, was to be able to turn off my brain a little bit easier, to get rid of the anxious thoughts that are just running through it all the time. So I got in there, and of course I'm like, all right, like, just float, close your eyes. And I tried to pretend that I was Thanos, like, floating in the galaxy.
You sick motherfucker.
But I hadn't just killed my daughter. And I just imagined myself, like, floating in the universe and trying to limit my thoughts. So what I expected is pretty much what I got, right? Which is, I wanted an easier time disconnecting from my rapid fire anxious thoughts that are flowing in all the time. And I did get it quicker. And I feel like if I did a lot more sessions, then I would probably get it for extended periods of time and deeper relaxation. I can see where the relaxation comes into play because I really did stop thinking about a lot of other things when I wasn't distracted by a lot of other things. So you don't have the noise, you don't have the sight, you don't have the feeling of your own body aches. For me anyway, that was gone. And I was able to just breathe. But I'm an anxious person, so the shit was still fucking coming in and out of there.
Right.
And I'm in the tank sitting there like, okay, after we leave here, we're going to need to grab lunch before we get back to the studio and we start recording the rest of the episode. And then after we do that episode, we need to talk about more. Like, so I was still all over the place, but I did bring it back in eventually. Right. So, I mean, do you see any benefit to it for you personally with your mental health?
My thing is I'm such a skeptic when it comes to any alternative therapies like that are for mental health, but I'm always open to try everything. So it's like that's the kind of balance, because even when I was first doing meditation and even now when I try to do it, like it's that skeptic side of me that also thinks like everything, like in the sarcastic person inside of me that thinks everything is just like a giant joke.
Right.
So when I'm in there, I'm just like when I said I had the thing where I'm like, oh, my body is a C this way, my body is a C this way. It's like my brain just being like, is this really actually helping me? Like, come on now, people, we're floating in a tank of water type of thing.
So kind of like you're so afraid of finding peace and joy that you have to put negative spin on everything you do.
Whoa, Katie. Just freaking ice pick to the soul.
You are worth peace and joy. Shed your skeptic skin.
Holy crap, we just had the first epiphany on Panic, the podcast. I have mental health problems.
What? I have self-worth issues? Yeah. So I love it.
Yeah, so the thing is that I thought it was fun. Like, I had fun doing it. Like, so that was the thing. As for the mental health benefits, maybe if I kept doing it, like, it would be one of those things that, like, I would eventually see. But
I agree.
I don't know if I would ever be able to get into it without just being like, this is fun that I'm floating in a tank of water right now. And, like, I can just let go and I'm not sinking to the bottom.
I agree. So. I completely agree with you. That's my benefit, too. I can see it helping with more practice. I don't know if it's a thing I personally would make the time in my life for. But that's mostly because I'm lazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway,
I mean, and Meme was telling us too that people sleep in that tank. Like,
that's
they do overnight things in that tank. Like, people will be there for if they have big interviews the next day or if they have something going on in their lives. Like, they'll actually spend the night in that thing. And I don't know if I could do that.
I don't know if I could do that. If any of you out there have actually spent the night in a sensory deprivation float tank, will you please reach out to us and tell us, because I'm fascinated by people who can sleep in there.
Michael Jackson apparently had one in his house too. He was the pre-Joe Rogan on the issue. So
Joe Rogan's like, wait a minute, hold on.
Please don't let me into that.
So anyway, I would recommend it for people. I would do it again. Some tips that I would give anybody who is going to do it. These are tips that Memi gave me beforehand, and I see the benefit in it. Number one, don't shave, because there's a lot of salt in there. Think about going to the beach after you shave.
Yeah, no.
Especially your more private parts.
Definitely don't get waxed.
Don't get a Brazilian before going. Another tip that I have for you is, if you insist on doing PCP at any point in your life, do PCP before the float tank, because apparently they're testing it to see how it helps with delusions and hallucinations in people with schizophrenia by first putting people on fucking PCP and testing how it makes their PCP less horrific.
Well, we definitely do not endorse PCP on Panic the Podcast, but if you do PCP, well, we're learning new things about each other every single day.
We don't endorse it.
Yes, we don't endorse it. But if you do decide to do it, apparently they want your feedback. So find out wherever that was and send your honest review to the researchers for the float tank.
So, all right, guys, that's our first alternate therapy. We had so much fun. We can't wait to do more. We've already gotten some people sending in suggestions just from us mentioning it on our first show. So far right now, people have asked us to try Reiki healing, crystal healing, acupuncture, goat yoga, and to the person who suggested we do shrooms and or LSD microdosing.
You're our new best friend, and we would like to know where we can get it from. Thank you.
We're just kidding, obviously. We don't. I mean, a
Speak
little
for
bit.
yourself.
I mean, it depends. We've already gotten these suggestions. They're really cool. If you have some ideas or some things, please send them to us. We would love to just try anything. So make sure that you send your submissions for alternate therapy. And otherwise, we will see you on the next episode of Panic.
Bye.
Bye. So we make light of matters on the show, but mental health is a serious issue that affects so many of us today. And for one reason or another, we often feel ashamed of getting help.
But fuck that shit. Sometimes things suck and we all need some guidance.
And we want to provide you with a couple of resources to do just that.
The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline provides 24/7 free and confidential support for people in distress, prevention, and crisis resources for you and your loved ones. You can reach them at 1-800-273-TALK.
And SAMHSA's national helpline, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, is a free, confidential 24/7, 365-day-a-year treatment, referral, and information service for individuals and families facing mental and or substance use disorders. Their number's 1-800-662-HELP.
Use it for yourself or share it with others. Either way,
You are not alone in this.
You, Michael Jackson.